We're talking about buildings and low rises. What about our infrastructure? What about our roads? What about our bridges?
Infrastructure din. And in that study nga, 7 bridges would be heavily damaged. And dapat, from 2004...
Yung 7 bridges na yun, yung pa rin 7 bridges ngayon.
I'm not aware kung ilan na na-retrofitted. Guadalupe is one of them.
Okay.
And to go back also, even many building owners were telling me, nag-survive na several earthquakes. And structural engineering experts are telling me, if you compare it to a paper clip, you bend it once, hindi magbe-break. You break it, bend it several times, it will break. So buildings get tired also. So ideally, if buildings are 25 years old, you should do structural audit already. And if it needs retrofitting, you should do it.
When you say should, is that part of the law, or is that just best practice that you're
for
trying
best
to...
practice.
But actually now the local governments are requiring mga buildings more than 15 years.
Less than 15 years.
To be certified
Structural
by a
audit.
structural engineer that ano pa siya, okay pa yung integrity niya.
Okay, so kung may kumatok from City Hall, sinabi, oy, magpatingin kayo, hindi yung racket, ha? Totoo yun. Sige.
This may be controversial because I wrote the article one time, Corruption Kills. Alam na natin, alam ng mga developers, contractors, and building owners na some of those giving permits, if you bribe them, they don't have to review anymore structural calculations.
Yeah, that's possible.
So that maybe we should be more strict na in getting building
At saka yan
permits.
po yung sinasabing, ay sarili mo lang dinuloko mo. Obviously, peg natin lahat Japan, di ba? Parang, galing-galing ng Japan. Nag-viral yung mga videos nila na ang bilis maglinis, pati yung disaster response. Going on the engineering perspective and also policy wise, how do we compare?
I think with the policies, it's all there. With the government's policies, with the national codes, etc.
What about self-awareness of our geological givens?
Actually, the geological FIVOX also mentioned that yun nga, we have the fault lines identified. We even have geohazard maps. It's already there.
So it's not for lack of knowledge, and it is not for lack of policy.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really, I think, it's really the awareness of the people. It's how the implementation of these codes, the implementation of these standards, and the awareness ng public.
Yeah, and to that point about awareness, we're not just talking about, to be fair to government, we're not just talking, when we keep saying implementation kasi,
Okay.
diba? But on the other side of implementation is compliance.
Compliance,
Diba?
yes,
The people's willingness to participate for their own
So the
safety.
private sector na yan.
Apa.
Oh.
But ano pong perspective nyo? I mean, when we compare ourselves to Japan or even Taiwan or even other countries, let's say even Jakarta, di ba? In Indonesia, where they have a lot of earthquakes as well, how do we compare?
Yeah, implementation nga and monitoring. We should have constant vigilance and monitoring. Like most offices, at least in our office, we have a rope how to get down from the building. We have a hammer to break the glass. We have wheelchairs and stretchers. We have a emergency response team that would respond. When I go to Japan, I check the hotel room. They have a rope, they have a flashlight, they have a radio, they have hammers ready for an emergency preparedness in every hotel room. Do we have that in our hotels?
Now, engineer, I mean, to both of you, because we're talking about technology in other places, it comes into play here because now we're talking about not just homes, not just buildings. We're now talking about infrastructure. We're not talking about a subway, and that's what the first thing that people say. Subway dito ay panay baha nga. Baha pa lang yung inaalala nila doon. Now they're also saying, paano yung earthquakes? Do we have the capability, the capacity, and of what you understand of how this is going to be built? How reassured should we be?
Natanong ko na yung subway. According to Department of Transportation, the Japanese expert daw, they located it in a stable soil like adobe. And they're using the standards of Japan.
Okay.
According to a spokesperson of Department of Transportation.
I don't know if you mentioned this, but the standards in Japan would be able to withstand what?
Yeah. Maybe 8 and above.
Actually, our standards are at par with globally.
Okay.
It's just that...
Kasi madali naman mag-set ng standard.
So, the technology also that are used in Japan, yung sinasabing mga earthquake resistant instruments, yung base isolators, mga dampers, we can actually apply it here. In fact, some buildings already have applied those things dito sa structures natin. So, yun nga, it's all a matter of implementation, how we implement those things dito sa atin. But in terms of the policy, I think we're at par with other countries.